Welcome to the Roots and Branches JJC Alumni Podcast. As the nation's first community college, JJC has played a key role in shaping America's higher education system. Our rich and beautiful history reaches more than a century into the past, forever connecting generations of alumni. I am Jen Davis, Annual Giving and Alumni Relations Manager, and I will be your host. In each episode, we'll sit down with different alumni to uncover their most cherished memories, hear their inspiring tales, and get their hard-earned wisdom for future wolves. So, if you're ready, let's dive into the roots of our rich history and branch out into the stories that define us on this episode of the Roots and Branches JJC Alumni Podcast. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for episode 7 of the JJC Alumni Podcast. Today's guest I actually met back in 2003 when we were students in the Community Leadership School with the Joliet Chamber of Commerce. And one of the first things that this guest said to me afterwards was, "Hey, I heard you say in your intro that you worked at JJC. That's where I went to school, and I loved it there." And I thought, okay, this guy's great. And I knew when I started this podcast that he was going to have to be a guest because there are so many great connections he still has to JJC in his different roles. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Ken Guldenbecker, who is the Development Director for United Way of Will County. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jen, the pleasure is all mine. That's such kind words. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we had a lot of fun in community leadership school, and I know that it was something that we both looked forward to going to every week, and we really got to know one another. And I think what made me want to have you on the show today is because you've got a lot of important roles here in Joliet. I mean, you're doing a ton with United Way. You're very, very involved in the community, but another wonderful connection that you have to JJC is that you are a part of our community band. And there's just something so special about that. And I still love when I found out you were in it and how I found out, but we'll tell that story later. So there's just so much fun to talk about, and I was glad that you could join us. So now, before we dive into all the wonderful things that you are doing in Joliet, in United Way, I want to rewind the clock, and I want to talk about what led you to JJC in the first place. I know that you were a student at Minooka High School, just as I was, but what led you to want to come to school here?
Absolutely. I was born and raised in Minooka, and so I've always been in the community and certainly within Joliet Junior College's school district, college district. And so early on in life, coming from a very Midwestern lifestyle, middle class, down to earth type of community, I knew I wanted to go to college. I went back and forth many different ways on what I was going to study. And I always knew really in the back of my mind that JJC was going to be one of my priority considerations. Turns out I'm lucky to have a world-class institution. Any major I've considered was an option. That's a funny story in itself because I don't know, I'm usually not indecisive, but I couldn't decide what I wanted to major in. And I kind of just that first morning at JJC orientation, I say, business. And it's been a great decision. Even though I made it on a whim, it's been a great decision. So JJC is a wonderful institution. It's a wonderful place. But I can't deny that it was the pragmatic side of a community college that even brought me into consideration. And there was never a time in that admissions process where I even considered another option.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you were here for a chunk of time that actually you had the pandemic happen while you were still here as a student, right? So I know you've got a lot of great stories and a lot of good experiences, but there's one particular story that I remember you telling me about, and you actually have some great quotes about it, but I want you to tell the story first. You had a math class that was hybrid, right? That really gave you some struggles. Talk to me about that class and then what you ended up learning as a result of it.
If I remember correctly, I remember the professors telling us this, and I just don't know if it was accurate or not, but I believe it was the first hybrid math class offered at JJC that I was in. And it was asynchronous, so work at your own pace. And I went, before entering in college, just in general, I was very concerned and I struggled heavily with math in high school. And of course, no matter what you major in, it's an important part of your education. And so they recommended this hybrid course because of the workload that it is. And I took comfort in that. I thought, okay, as long as I can apply myself, I'm willing to do the work. And they were absolutely right. And it gave me a fundamental understanding of arithmetic and factoring that carried on through every math business class I had after the fact. But absolutely, but that took a lot of work. And so that was at the beautiful Romeoville campus. It wasn't near the Romeoville community, but that's where it was offered and worked with my schedule. It's a beautiful campus. It was very easy for me to spend hours in that cafeteria area. It was very quiet, peaceful. And I would work on those online lessons. And it was wonderful. You would get it wrong and tell you what you get wrong, and it would have you do it correctly like 3 times in a row. And to me, I don't remember my exact grade in the class, but it was sort of how I looked at it, like a pass fail situation, because you either didn't get it at all or you had a great understanding of it. And that's how I left leaving that. And it really instilled for the first time in me what college was all about and one of its great lessons. And that's learning how to learn. And for the
I love that.
first time in a long time, I was really excited to keep learning.
I love that so much. That was the favorite part of my story is when you told me that class taught you how to learn. And it didn't come easy and it wasn't simple, but I didn't realize that. And now, because hybrid classes here are just such a constant that it seems strange to think back that that was one of the first ones. And, you were lucky to go to Romeoville. We're blessed to have great satellite campuses that make it convenient for students. And you got to share and all that. But then, of course, 2020 came and it didn't really matter what campus you were at because we didn't come back from spring break, basically. We went all online. And I know you also have a pretty memorable experience of the economics course, right, that you were taking at that time. Tell me a little bit about that and the professor that you hold in high regard.
I do hold him in high regard. Jen, have you met Cliff Altoff?
I don't think so. No.
Do yourself a favor and look him up.
Okay.
Great guy. He was one of the most enthusiastic people I ever met. We started the semester never hearing of COVID. And the first day he asked everyone to raise your hand if you were in his economics 101 class, because this was 102 or 200 or however it's called. And most people put their hand up. I was not one of those people, but I was lucky enough to be the few of us that made it into his class one way or the other. I will say there was many subjects that came to me, well, that I did well at, including English and other things like history. And economics, I thought, was going to be one of those. And I wasn't picking it up early on. And Cliff, I don't think I even seeked him out. I think he seeked me out. And he was passing out the tests. And sorry to admit it was probably a D. And he said, talk to me after class. And we went through it meticulously. And what that conversation ended up looking like was me needing to separate certain concepts. Mm-hmm. And the material afterward was me focusing on, this is that concept rather. And when I before I was mushing them together and causing myself confusion. And of course, that's one of 100 different ways we can struggle with learning. But Cliff would follow up with me. And it was just, oh my word, it was an amazing experience. When we did come back from that extended spring break, all online after COVID, I remember he would follow up with us individually, make sure we were all right. And he was always disappointed at how little we all used the online messaging because he wanted that sense of connection throughout the class. And it was a great, great experience.
And I know that you're a newer alum, but when I ask, it's like, yeah, they have a couple memorable teachers, but you just were really so engaged in your courses here. You just really enjoyed being at JJC. And so that's why I had to ask you about those. And I know you were also involved in music and you took music courses when you were a student here as well, right?
Yes. I remember, so in high school, I had asked my band director about taking French horn lessons. And that's when I met Chuck Morgan, who's the director of the department chair of music. And I enrolled in this, they call it, I think, French horn something. And it's just a one-on-one, but it is a class through JJC, similar to a basic lesson, music lesson. And so I knew Chuck. And because of that, there was multiple semesters I would show music classes, even though it really wasn't my major. And I would talk to Wayne Golick at Business Advising. And he said, you need to make a decision here if music is going to be your life or your passion. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, you got a lot of coursework here. I go, oh, business is my life. Trust me, that is certainly my life and will be my livelihood. And music is my passion. And so I still play in the JJC community band, as you know, and I love every moment of it. Should we
Oh, yeah.
talk about that more?
Oh, we will talk about that more. First, I do want to talk, you did stick with business. You kept that your passion after JJC. You ended up transferring to University of St. Francis and worked there for a bit. And now you are in a really important role with United Way of Will County, development director. And there isn't anything in the community I seem to not see you at. You are so involved. And not just, I could certainly share your list. You being a Kiwanis member and board member, Romeoville Chamber member, Young Professionals member. I can go down your resume right now of all those things, but even more so than that, you are attending other people's events. You're trying to stay connected. You're trying to build some partnerships. And that's certainly an important topic I did want to talk today is just about community involvement. And why is that so important? And I think you've given me a lot of good answers about why you do that. So I want you to share that. What is so important about the way that you stay involved, whether you're a college student, whether you're in your career? What makes it so important to stay involved in the community?
You are so kind. I do. I enjoy it. I continue to try. Of course, there's scheduling conflicts all over, but I try to be at many different things. And the essence to me of community involvement, and especially as it relates to United Way, is how much we ask of our community. Our community is committed to what we do at United Way, Will County, and our mission in a very big way. We fund 44 different nonprofits in Will County, over 80 programs.
Wow.
And I always communicate with our donor base that it's you each year, you, our donors, and I include myself in that group, deciding if we're going to continue this work or not. And all these programs, no matter what they are to serve the basic human needs of those experiencing extreme hardship. And because I feel that commitment from our community, I am very committed to our community, and I enjoy it. I know within my heart that when people collaborate, good things happen on many different levels, whether it is health and social human service, whether it's culturally. And there's, of course, chambers of commerce that we all have our networking for our organizations. But we use these things as a catalyst to enter into or even create what we know as our community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about. And we've seen it happen. We've seen service organizations like Kiwanis build parks. We've seen the chamber understood this need to connect education to local business and organizations. And you probably know many as well, because we, of course, in one way or another, are industry colleagues. So you
Yes,
sort of know
we are.
what we're talking about. And I don't do it for that fine recognition you give me, but it is good to know that maybe in some sense our community feels connected to us, and they should. And we
Yes.
strive to give that feeling.
I actually think that connection is one of the things that maybe I got out most of community leadership school when we were a part of that. I felt like the relationships that we all made, we were from all different areas, different, backgrounds, different businesses. And yet, in one way or another, I feel like we have connected so much in different ways. Obviously, you and I are talking about all of our connections, but others, we've helped each other at events. We have a new foundation board member that came from our connections at community leadership school. The events where we host different things. It's just that connection alone is so valuable when you get out into your community, meet different people, understand other businesses and industries in a new way. I think it was one of the greatest experiences. And obviously, look, that's how I got you here today. But so what do you think is a good first step? If you are new in your career or you're even a college student looking to sort of get involved, what do you think is a good first step in getting more involved in your community?
I think a good first step is, it's different. It is different for everyone. From a business standpoint, is the Chamber of Commerce. And that's what I did. We were actively involved in Joliet. Of course, I worked at the University of St. Francis before I worked at United Way. And I was actively involved in Joliet Chamber. And when I moved to United Way, covering all of Will County, that's the first thing I did within the first few days, is introduce myself to the leaders of the various chambers of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And however, if someone wherever you live, wherever I live for the rest of my life, I will always be involved in our community because I know the wonderful things. And I do consider myself a servant leadership, a servant leader, whether a good one or a bad one. I work to be a good one. And wherever I am, I will always be there to help and serve others. And that has nothing to do really with the line of work that we're in. Many folks have positions, even my colleagues here, have positions that keep them in their office, and that's where they need to be and do their
Right.
work. But whether it's through a church or a service organization, there is some position for you in the community, whether it's a band booster organization, there's some position that you will fit into. And as we know, and even though we don't do it for this reason, but through giving, we receive. And oftentimes
Absolutely.
that gratification, I almost at times, like even I love my job, but I'm helping people in a tough situation. And
Yeah.
I almost take guilt in that gratification, but it's gratifying and it makes you feel good. Certainly when you can complete some accomplishments as well,
Yep.
it makes you motivated.
No, you're right. And the feeling of just being involved, being included in those different ways, it's a feel good experience.
The civic benefit. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, there's lots of benefits to it. So that's good advice. Thank you. So while we're still on the subject of community, I do want to go back to the band story because when you and I were talking all through community leadership school, I really did not know that you were involved in our community band. And then I show up to our foundation 50th anniversary event. It's at the beautiful Rialto Theater in Joliet, and I'm getting things set up. And I look over at community band, and there you are sitting there with your French horn. And I had to take like three, like, wait, but your excitement at getting to be there. And then like, here we are mingling as colleagues out in the community, working for our nonprofits, doing our work. And then here you are sitting in the band with a bunch of other people. And you guys are an incredible band. Talk a little bit about just JJC's community band to get people up to speed of what that is.
Oh, I absolutely will. But that event, that 50th anniversary event, that was a
Yeah,
beautiful
it was
event.
pretty great, huh?
And you did take a few. I go, hey, our question was on the agenda is if we were playing at the time given or needed to be on the stage at the time given. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which is simple. It wasn't like a debacle or anything. And you were walking by. I go, hey, Jen.
Oh, it was so
Hey,
great.
Jen. Hey, Jen. And you were like, everybody kind of laughed. And so that was a fun moment. But when I was a young student with Chuck Morgan and getting better at French horn, and like I said, in high school, I kind of made a decision that I wanted to be one of these sort of, strong players. And so that's why I started taking those lessons. And I'm like, what? I would ask Chuck, what is a community band? I didn't even understand it. And he kind of told me. And then maybe weeks later, he showed me some pictures from their concert. And I saw people of all ages. And I'm like, so what is it again? And now I was participated in the band as a student and still do as a community member. I've been to many other community band type concerts, and I know the value that they bring. JJC's band is really locally well respected. It's a world-class band. We play famous, well-known and renowned pieces by renowned composers. In the same concert, we will play pieces from up and coming composers. We just had a piece commissioned by a JJC music alum, and who he's certainly becoming to be a renowned composer rather than up and coming. We always play Sousa marches, and these are very respected part of American culture, but foreign as well. And in my opinion, that adds immense value to our local culture. And the fact that
Oh, yeah.
JJC applies these resources and contributes to our local culture in that way is huge. And I think it adds a lot of value to my life and a lot of value to a lot of other people's lives. And it's interesting where music it's been a great part of my life, but playing in the Monday night band, and we'll kick off again this Monday, there's so many personal benefits. I think it's true for many musicians in the group. It keeps your mind sharp. It keeps you focused. The folks that I happen to play with, there's something about musicians. We all love each other
Aw.
in a very sincere way. And every time, and it sounds maybe even dramatic, but I truly find myself doing it. Every time I enjoy some form of success in life, personally or professionally, I do find myself thinking about the band and how it's guided me as a person in so many ways. And I'm very, very lucky to have a great resource like that. And I live in Joliet. I mean, it's 5 minutes from where I live. Very, very lucky.
There is something special about band. I mean, I was a part of it when I was in college. I danced and we were just a part of the Saluki marching band. I loved it. It was a family, it was a community, but even more now I've gotten to see my daughter who plays with the Minooka marching band and seeing them together and just it is so much more than just, getting together and playing an instrument. Yes, they all love music. They all love doing that, but there is something about that relationship when you share that experience together. And you're not the only one that says that too about our music program and just the number of alumni, community members, current students who are a part of our community band. It is a very, very big band, which is wonderful. And you guys pack the house. You have how many concerts a year do you have?
We have two, yeah, and we fill up every seat, and they even have
Yes.
people standing, and they open. Usually, you would close the doors before performance. They leave them open so people can
Yes.
stand and watch. And we have multiple groups. We have some that are just in the choir, jazz group, and the steel pan group, which I
Yes.
I have yet to make it a concert to that, but I certainly will because that's very fascinating.
Yeah, just fascinated by when I see pictures and when I've attended myself, how hard it is to get a seat. And obviously you played for our 50th anniversary. I know you guys do special events but how does someone join the community band? If they're not a current student here, how do you join it? Do you just contact the music department or how do you get involved?
Oh, you absolutely do. And you're always welcome. Being a community band, and I can actually I can plug Chuck Morgan a little bit too because he is a community band expert.
Yes.
There is not an audition. You are welcome to join as long as you are at the caliber of playing. So that which would usually mean you are a high school graduate that played
Mhm.
throughout school. And there's a great balance of fun and welcoming and also a deliberate approach to practicing music. And that's why I say we're really lucky to have a world-class group like this because it's difficult to achieve that with a community band. And the thinking is we enjoy putting, they call it in music, woodshed practicing, and we enjoy putting in the woodshed, and which isn't always, sometimes it's work, it's exercise, but it's fun to sound good. And Chuck has done a great job balancing that. So anyway, I'm always a proponent of the band because I know the value it's brought to me in life, and I have welcomed folks into the band. And I say, come and find me. Someone in the room. Yeah, we'll get you set up. But you're absolutely right. You just call a college. I'm sure they put you through to Chuck or someone, and you're always welcome to join.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's welcome there. But even if you don't play an instrument like me, oh, yikes, you don't want me in the community band. But I love to attend, and anyone can attend. They also live stream your concerts now, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, incredible.
The tickets are so nominal. I can't remember exactly what they are, but they're very, very inexpensive. And all that money, I'm told, at the concerts goes right into student scholarships.
It sure does. Yeah.
And they had some numbers. It was in the tens of thousands of dollar level that they were able to award to students. And as you know, that goes a really long way at JJC.
Yeah. Our Music Aviva program. I mean, just everything that the college does for the music and all of our wonderful music instructors, directors, they're constantly supporting those scholarships themselves, making sure that the word is out. They're always trying to help their students. And it's a wonderful program. But yes, all ticket proceeds do go back to our students. So it's a wonderful reason to attend, especially if you're a local. You can find out more information about joining the band and get links to live streams, links to purchasing tickets, and our fine arts schedule if you go to jjc.edu/ and it's fine-arts-events. And that will give you everything from art, music, theater, but it's definitely a wonderful page of resources for you. And Ken, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that about community band. It's just, I know it's one more piece of something that you're involved in, but when I found out that you were a part of it, and then when I would hear you speak about how incredible it is, I thought, okay, we need to give more attention to the community band and let people know that that exists. So thank you for sharing. So Ken, at the end of all of these podcasts, I really like to give people the opportunity to give some advice to our future wolves. And this can be anything from your experience as a student, from your career perspective, anything. I know you've already given a little advice about how to get involved in the community, but if you were to be sitting in front of a group of future JJC students right now, what would your advice be?
I think about two different pieces. One as a student, one as you're leaving college. But as a student, it sounds simple, but don't be afraid to stay involved on campus and even within your class. There's so many lessons that I took from JJC, important lessons, because before I was a high school grad working a part-time job, I had no practical experience in what it is that we do in business administration. And the most prevalent memory of this piece of advice I have is business law with Terry O'Neill. And I think about that class often. And what we talked about was more than just, I don't mean just life lessons, I mean practicing your trade. And from that class, I learn and know what to look for and what to include in a business agreement and a contract, how to understand where compromises are, which is very, very difficult. And there's proven practices that we know that get us to those points. I know how policy and transactions move through business. And I think about it, like I said, I think about it often, especially as we start new projects and new ventures
Right.
Within my work. And so enjoy it and just be a sponge and take in that information, because you'll never know how you're going to use it in the future.
Right.
When I was leaving college, boy, did I want to take over the world. I really did. And I still do, I guess, in a way. But I really, myself and even some friends of mine, came to some realizations, whether they were easy or harsh realizations after college. And they would tell me, mentors I had at JJC and at St. Francis, to take whatever job you can in a good way. Don't settle, but take what was offered to you and try many different things. I didn't know, even after graduating college, I knew many practices of business. I did not know what we do as professional fundraisers. And I took a part-time job in fundraising. So I graduated college working part-time. That didn't feel too good. But that little experience for a short term helped me get into St. Francis and now United Way. I like what I do.
Yeah.
And I would have never thought that if I was stubborn and was looking for, I need a certain salary or a certain full-time job. In life, just the way my personal life was going, I needed to move. I needed to sustain myself.
Yeah.
So it's certainly not easy. But even though I didn't like hearing it as a college student, that would be my advice, because if you're lucky, and I consider myself lucky, you will find something that's new to you that excites you every single day. I can't even sleep. I'm so excited for the next day. Even though I didn't like hearing it at the time, I really think and would now encourage others to do just that.
Very good advice, Ken. And as a fundraiser myself, I actually don't know a fundraiser who went to school for that, if you will. It seems like every fundraiser, every person I know who's involved in a nonprofit got there because of passions beyond that. So, I mean, obviously you've always had a passion for business. You knew what you want to be in it, but now what you're doing with your business is helping other people in such important and impactful ways. Here at JJC, my role in fundraising, I've always loved working with students, whether it was as a teacher or now working with alumni relations, but it's helping those students, getting them these scholarships, giving them a shot. And I find fundraising to be maybe one of the more difficult jobs, but definitely one of the most rewarding. So it's always important. You don't have to be a fundraiser as your professional career. You can be somebody that supports fundraising or is a part of it just in lots of little ways in your community. And that was really one of the focuses just that I wanted to get to of this episode, because Ken, you are so involved in the community in so many different ways, and you've stayed connected to JJC. And I think that it's all opened a lot of doors for you. So if there's anything to take away from this particular episode, I would say it's to get involved in every way, become a part of your community, become a part of your college, your industry. it's all worth it. It's all worth it. So, yeah. Well, Ken, thank you so very much for being here today. I really appreciated you telling your stories of your time at JJC and just offering some really great advice. And to those of you, as I said, if you want to know any more about our fine arts, you will go to jjc.edu/fine-arts-events, and you can see Ken and the rest of our amazing community band. Ken, is there anything that you want to share from United Way perspective? Do you have any community fundraisers coming up that you'd like to plug?
Actually, not. We have a big fundraiser every year later in the year in our golf outing. I look forward to doing that. And believe it or not, the last couple of years now, we've done, as you know, a JJC raffle basket at that outing. And there's always just as many tickets in that as anything else. So it shows you how prevalent of an impact you had. And it's good to know that there's 2 people in Will County, at least, that have the Wiley bobblehead JJC
That's right.
on our office shelves.
Oh, that's great. Then, Ken, thank you again for being here today.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you back on the next episode of the JJC Alumni Podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Roots and Branches JJC Alumni Podcast. For more episodes, information, foundation events, and ways to give or get involved, visit jjc.edu/alumni.